Next thing, we also make sure that there is a framework to ensure these people are doing exactly what we want them to do, which is this. We call it the LEARN framework. Stands for lesson, experience, assimilation, reflection, and next step. Let me explain what we do with this LEARN framework. We want all the heads of department to come in with their own case studies, yes? So you come in, we're going to show you the steps. In this case, it is a leadership coaching program. So what we did is we get them to understand the steps that is required to do a certain coaching, so that when they go out there, they're able to coach the direct reports and also to coach their peers. We gave them a certain steps. How do you carry out a coaching session? That's what this is. Then the moment they get this, we want them to get into the experiential mode. This is where we want them to use their own challenges, their own issues in a coaching environment. We have a coach, we have a coachee, and we also have an observer to see how the coaching sessions progress. Okay? So here, this is going to be very intense because they are really using their own cases in that coaching environment. It is very relevant to them, that's why they pay attention. All right? And they know the moment they learn how to do this, they already have a solution that they can implement immediately when they go back to work. Once they've done that, assimilation is where we talk about it. We'll ask them what worked for you, what didn't work for you, so that they tell us how it felt, having that coaching session. We know after all this discussion, they will have confusion going on. Because what happened is they're now having the old information and the new information coming in clashing. So we make sure that we give them time to reflect. Here, we make sure that we give you quiet time to write down what do you think will work best when you go back to work. So these people, they've learned the steps, they've experienced it, they talked about it, and they start reflecting and asking themselves, I think this really worked. I think this can help me in my job. So they wrote down, and what we want them to do is, next step is, what is the action plan? What are you going to do next the moment you go back to work? So this is a cycle. All right, this is a cycle where we will get them through a certain module. So because of this, all the participants managed to learn the coaching steps, not only that, but also how do you apply it back to your work based on your own individual scenario. So these people actually is coming into the room with the same setting as they were to go out. So they don't feel like I'm coming in, I'm losing 2 days, coming in, learning something, I don't know whether it's going to work. Right. Bringing their environment into the room. We solve the problem and they get back out there so that they can implement it immediately. In the Japanese management concept that says, if you have done your design correctly, your execution will be a breeze. So we actually took that to make sure that we spend an extra time to plan this, to design this with the head of the consulting unit. When the finalized framework came out, I would tell you it was like 6 or 7 versions. We were really spending a lot of time making sure that the design of the framework is what really can work in this organization. Now, because of the time we spent together and co-creating this plan, there is absolute buy-in, not only from the head of the consulting unit, but also from each and every participant, because their time was involved in planning this that will help them improve the performance. My friends in HR, if you don't want results, go and tell the service provider, I've got this problem, you handle it. I can tell you it will never work. You know why? Because the service provider do not understand the real issue as much as you do. If you really want to make your training or coaching dollar work for you, you have to have the mindset as a joint venture project. You have to be involved in the project just as much as the service provider. That way, both of you understand what's going on. So here, it was a total joint venture effort between the head, ourselves, and also the participants. We have spent a lot of resources even before we begin day one. I can tell you the results at the end of the day is well worth it. We co-owned the project. We went through it every step of the way. Participants have a say in the order of deployment and also timeline. Now, the participants come from 3 locations. All right? They come from Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. So every time when there's a program, they have to fly in. And participants, the 24 of them, 24 heads of department, comes from 7 nations. A group of international managers in there, each of them with a different timeline, each of them with a different project nature, each of them has a different reporting line. So in order to make sure that all of them come into the same room at the same time in the same place, we really want to make sure that the deployment is done at the absolute precision. There were 4 stages. After every stage, we had a post-mortem. We want to make sure that we have reviewed it to make sure the objective is still relevant, to make sure that the pace is relevant, to make sure that the people there is really getting what they want. All right, so there's a lot of frequent reviews. Like I said, the GM got involved all the way, every single step. We keep focusing on the key learning and development objective. Like I said, the only thing that is measurable here, the only thing that we know whether are we on track, is to keep going back to the objective. At the end of the day, what we have is a coaching culture established not only in Malaysia, but in Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. This whole project took 166 hours to complete, involving 24 world-class managers. As I said, these managers are highly trained, highly experienced, highly exposed, consisting of 7 nationalities in 3 locations. When they go back, they actually had a total of 72 coaching sessions, impacting hundreds of people in their organization. Remember, these are heads of department, they have their own managers, supervisors, and they were actually entrusted to cascade this coaching methodology right down to the lowest level possible. So what happened is they had to go back there, they have to do this day in, day out. At the end of the project, during the performance appraisal time, it involves 50 man-hours. We actually compared the performance appraisal the year before and the performance appraisal right after this project. And they actually had a certain score where there were some which is really high and some really low. We actually had an average of 89%, which actually shocked them because one of the KPI of this is actually an increment of between 30 to 50%. At the end of the day, we actually managed to achieve 89%. This is indeed a success story for us as well and also for them. Okay, so with that, I'd like to take some questions now.